Steep turns. A steep turn is a turning maneuver consisting of a constant altitude turn in either direction using a bank angle between 45 and 60 degrees of bank. If you're going for your private pilot certificate, you will need to demonstrate this maneuver at 45 degrees of bank. If you're going for your commercial, you'll need to demonstrate it at 50 degrees of bank. The steep turn will cause an overbanking tendency during which maximum turning performance is attained and relatively high load factors are imposed. So as you turn the aircraft, it'll want to overbank and continue turning even after you've commanded the plane to stop. Why do we care about steep turns? So we can develop smoothness, coordination, orientation, division of attention, and control techniques necessary for maximum performance turns. The pilot understands the effects of the overbanking tendency and how to counter it. So we're going to talk about maximum performance turns, the science behind turns, and how to actually fly the maneuver. If you guys play any combat games like War Thunder, you know that if you're going really, really fast, your radius of your turn is going to be much larger than if you're trying to chase down an aircraft that's moving a little bit slower, whose radius of turn will be smaller. So your radius of turn is directly correlated to your airspeed. So higher airspeed means a bigger radius. So if you want to take this beyond just private pilot stuff, if you're on your enemy's 6 and you want to stay within his circle, you'll need to actually be a little slower to outturn him and stay on his tail. Right? Now, your maximum bank angle is determined by the load factor, which can be maintained without stalling or exceeding structural limits. So that means that, if you want to do a steep turn, you want to make sure that your airplane is capable of performing those maneuvers. Like a 172 can do a 45-degree turn just fine. But if you want to do some crazy maneuvers like barrel rolls, you're going to need an aircraft that is a bit more structurally sound than your rickety 150 or 172. Right? And it's typically published in your pilot operating handbook. So let's talk about turns. How does an airplane turn? Most people think it's the rudder, and that is not quite accurate. The airplane is actually generating lift as we fly. All the lift is vertical when we're flying straight and level. Right, of course. Now, when we want to turn the airplane, we'll actually turn the yoke in one direction, let's say to the left, and the ailerons will move in opposite directions. Now, one wing is generating more lift than the other, and that differential of lift is going to roll the aircraft to the left. In this case, to the left. Now, a byproduct of lift is drag. So as this wing generates more lift, it's actually going to generate more drag, causing a adverse yaw. Now, let's talk about load factor. Load factor is the ratio of the load sustained by the wings to the actual weight of the aircraft. So as you roll into a turn, you're actually experiencing the wings are carrying more load, more weight because of the centrifugal force. Like if you are spinning a bucket over your head, you can keep that water inside that bucket because of centrifugal force, right? And so the same thing, as we roll into the turn, we're getting sucked into our seats, and the aircraft, the wings are experiencing more load than at straight and level flight. And we call that load factor, and we refer to it in terms of G. And it's not linear, it's exponential. So in a 10-degree turn, you're barely feeling any G. But if you go to a 60-degree turn, you're actually feeling about 2 Gs, or 2 times the force of gravity. And as your bank angle and your load factor increase, your stall speed will also increase exponentially. So in a 60-degree bank turn, you're feeling 2 Gs, and your aircraft will stall a little more than 40% faster airspeed than normal. And remember, a stall is anytime you exceed that critical angle of attack and the aircraft stops generating lift because the airflow is disrupted over the wing. Right? So the reason we care is because in a steep turn, we are going to be pulling some G. We're going to be adding to the load factor of the aircraft, and we will increase our stall speed as we perform the maneuver. So we briefly touched on adverse yaw before. Like I said before, a byproduct of lift is drag. And when you roll an aircraft to the left, for example, the right wing is generating more lift, and it's also generating more drag, which means that the aircraft will actually want to roll to the left, but also yaw to the right in the wrong direction. So to counteract that, we're going to add in a little bit of rudder to account for that adverse yaw. In this case, we might need to do a little bit of left rudder. So we'll roll the wings to the left, add a little bit of left rudder to keep the airplane coordinated, and then perform the maneuver. We also have some other left turning tendencies, torque factor, the gyroscopic precession of the propeller, slip screw, or the corkscrewing effect of the slipstream. Short version is you want to keep an eye on your turn coordinator and step on the ball if it escapes, and keep the aircraft coordinated. Yeah, and like we talked about, the overbanking tendency, because the one wing is moving faster through the air than the other, it's going to create more lift, and the aircraft will continue wanting to roll beyond what you've commanded it to do. Now, the outside wing travels a longer path relative to the inside wing, and that higher airspeed results in the outside wing generating more lift, more bank. And so at a certain point, the aircraft will want to roll beyond where you've told it to roll. And that's that overbanking tendency. We might have to add some opposite direction aileron inputs to counteract that overbanking tendency, right? And in the shallow bank, the difference is actually overcome by lateral stability. In a medium bank, your lift differential matches lateral stability, and in a high bank, the difference in lift will actually outweigh your lateral stability, and the airplane will continue banking even with a neutral flight control. So even though you roll to the left and then neutralize the ailerons, the plane will want to continue banking, so you might need to add a little bit opposite aileron pressure. All right, so let's actually talk about performing the steep turns. Before the maneuver, and before every maneuver, you're going to go out and be flying. You're going to do a series of clearing turns, clear the airspace to make sure you're not going to bump into anybody, and you want to check your ADS-B. If you've got ADS-B in, look for other airplanes in the airspace. Good situational awareness. Then, as you're flying, you're going to note an outside reference, like a mountain, or a couple of mountains, and you're going to bug your inside heading. So on your heading indicator, you will bug your current heading, and you're going to roll into the maneuver by adding nice abrupt aileron input with the yoke. Roll the wings to the left or to the right, depending on what direction you're going, and then you're going to use a little bit of rudder to counteract that adverse yaw. And then I like to add a couple of rolls of the trim wheel. So if we're rolling to the left aileron, left rudder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the roll of the trim wheel, and then we're going to note our angle against the horizon. It should be about a 45-degree angle. And then I like to keep an eye on my airspeed indicator here, because that'll let me know if we are climbing or descending. Right, so we'll drag our nose across the horizon, note our angle of bank, note our vertical speed, keep your head outside, look at your coordination to make sure that you are coordinated, and 90% of your time should be spent outside of the aircraft looking for other traffic or looking at visual references. Like I said, 90% outside, 10% inside, and you'll need to adjust your angle of bank. The ACS says plus or minus 5 degrees, so you don't have to be perfect the entire time, but you do want to shoot for that 45-degree angle with the horizon, and plus or minus 100 feet of altitude, so keep an eye on your vertical speed. If you start to sink, or if you see that your vertical speed is in a negative direction, you can roll out a little bit of the turn and pitch up to get back up to the horizon, and then roll back into the turn. If you are climbing, you can steepen up your bank angle or relax your nose and try to get back to that sight picture right here where your nose is on the horizon. At the private pilot level, you only need to do one turn at a time. So when you are about half the bank angle away from your target, so if we're doing 45-degree turns, about 22 degrees or so away from your original heading, you'll start your rollout, and you want to end exactly on your initial heading. At the private pilot level, you can roll out, retrim, get set, anticipate that extra gain of lift, because as you are rolling, your lift goes from being purely vertical to having a vertical and a horizontal component. So you want to anticipate that extra gain of lift. So as we roll, we lose a bit of vertical lift, and then when we roll out of it, we're going to regain that lift, and you might climb up. So when you roll out, anticipate with a little bit of forward nose pressure and retrim so you don't climb up. And then at the private pilot level, once you're stabilized, You can roll right back into the turn to the right this time, and same thing, anticipate that loss of lift with a bit of trim, maybe a little bit of power. And then when you come back, you can roll out and level off again. At the commercial level, you'll have to do both turns one after the other. So first you do your left turn, and then you roll right back into the right turn, and then you continue on flying. All right, that is the steep turns questions.
Okay, we're doing steep turns one more time. There's Mal Baker, and rolling into it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, noting our position on the horizon. Noting our vertical speed. 0 on the VSI is what we want. Holding 3,000 feet. There's Mal Baker. Rolling out, and rolling right into the right side. INR. Nose position on the horizon, our vertical speed, and our angle of bank look just fine. If we need to roll out a bit to get back onto the horizon, that's fine. And then there's Mount Baker. 1, 2, 3 on the trim. Exactly 3,000 feet. Beautiful. And that is a steep turn.